Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Gloucester Unitarian Universalist Church's online service. We are having some technical difficulties this morning with our recorded music, which is disappointing, but we'll keep working on that and we'll try to bring it to you as the service goes on. So bear with us. As always, we cannot gather in our beloved church building right now, but as we say, the church has left the building and church is made up of its people. And so we are together, even though we are apart, wherever we are. I'd like to offer a special welcome to guests this morning, folks from far away who we haven't seen for a long time, folks who are giving us a try. We're very glad to have you with us, and we hope that this service will bring you the support that you need for the week ahead. Before we start announcements, I just wanted to offer some thanks. We don't usually get a chance to talk about how we do this, but it takes a crew of 4 to put one of these services together. So I want to lift up Pat Johnson and Kelly Knox and Roger Garberg, who this week have been the behind the scenes crew getting this together. So thank you all. Don't know what we would do without you. And now Pat Johnson is our worship associate, and she has a few announcements.
Good morning, everybody. Our first announcement today is a request, and that is to please keep your microphones muted throughout the service. As you've already heard while we were trying to scramble to get things together, you can hear people typing and coughing and so forth in the background, and it confuses Zoom when there's a lot of audio coming in. So please keep your mics muted throughout the service. And at the end of the service, Reverend Janet will open up everybody's microphones for a big hello at the end. Each week, we invite you to have a candle or a chalice and some matches ready at home so that we can all light our chalices together. So this would be a good time to grab a candle if you wish. We will be recording our service this morning. Only the service leaders are visible in the final recording. So you don't need to worry about people seeing your pajamas and so forth. Please contact Reverend Janet or Roger Garberg if you'd like to watch the recording later in the week. It will be available from on a YouTube video format, so that's worth watching. At the end of the service, as I said, Reverend Janet will open up for a group hello, and then she'll be breaking people down as she did last week into what's called a breakout rooms. So you can have small group conversations for about 10 minutes after the service, sort of a virtual coffee hour. No coffee cake, but people, which is what we're all missing right now. And finally, if you're visiting and would like to know more about the church, please email the church office or visit our website or our Facebook page. And then also we show our contact information at the end of the service. If we're able to get our media running one way or another, we'll get that information to you. We're going to continue to offer some small online gatherings over the course of the week on Zoom, so please watch out for Zoom invitations in your email. If you have any ideas for topics or themes for Zoom meetings, please give Reverend Janet a call or send her an email and let her know. And really, the sky's the limit at this point as we all try to find ways to be together during this pandemic. So now let's prepare our hearts and our spirits for worship.
Our call to worship this morning is from the United Nations Environmental Sabbath Service, which was created in 1990. Today, we know of the energy that moves all things, the oneness of existence, the diversity and uniqueness of every moment of creation, every shape and form, the attraction, the allurement, the fascination that all things have for one another. Humbled by our knowledge, chastened by surprising revelations, with awe and reverence, we come before the mystery of life. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn is Blue Boat Home. We have pre-recorded this with Shannon and Caroline Connolly leading.
Love me, I feel.
As we do every Sunday when we gather in our sanctuary, we open our service today by lighting our chalice. Today we will all join together to light our own chalices and candles wherever we are. By doing this, we symbolize that we may be temporarily apart in body, but together in spirit. So if you've prepared a candle at home, please take a moment now to light it. As I light mine, when it's lit, if you can, hold it up for the camera for a second so we can all see each other's candles. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, there it is. We gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
This week on Wednesday, we will celebrate Earth Day for the 50th time, commemorating an environmental movement that began in 1970. Now, in 1970, the Cuyahoga River had recently caught fire, and not for the first time. Piles of rusting automobiles and tires and garbage dotted the landscape. And things are different now. But as we look back, we know that the effort to live more gently on the earth has had many ups and downs during the years. Sometimes the progress has been clearly evident, and other times progress can seem obscured by ever more smog and pollution. Right now, we are in one of those times where it's hard to tell whether if we're making progress toward a healthier earth or not. Regulations to protect our air and water are being dismantled. But on the other hand, what's interesting is we are becoming increasingly aware during this time of pandemic that the earth is actually responding to our changed behavior and showing signs of healing itself. This April 22nd will probably go down as the most unusual Earth Day ever. We are here taking shelter at home, unable to participate in outdoor celebrations or demonstrations. We are keeping our distance from one another to protect both ourselves and each other. And in doing so, we can see the evidence of how our actions affect the entire planet. There are stories of clearer air, cleaner water, and the sounds of birds and animals in urban locations where we thought that humans were the only inhabitants. More than on any previous Earth Day, we see that what we do matters. We see our connections with our fellow humans, certainly, as we take actions to protect and to help one another. We're all in this together, we keep saying, and it is certainly true. But we can see more clearly than ever before that it is not just the humans who are in this together. We recognize this year that we are, as our Unitarian Universalist seventh principle proclaims, part of the interdependent web of existence. We are just a part of the whole. And so this morning, we will be celebrating Earth Day by celebrating our connections with all that is. We will share some beautiful poetry and talk about creation myths from different cultures that emphasize our oneness. The poet Philip Larkin put it this way in his poem, The Little Lives of Earth and Form. The little lives of earth and form are finding food and keeping warm, are not like ours, and yet a kinship lingers nonetheless. We hanker for the homeliness of den and hole and set. And this identity we feel, perhaps not right, perhaps not real, will link us constantly. I see the rock, the clay, the chalk, the flattened grass, the swaying stalk, and it is you I see. Our first reading this morning is an excerpt from the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She tells a Native American creation myth. According to Anishinaabe teachings, it is said that the Creator gathered together the four sacred elements and breathed life into them to give form to original man before setting him on Turtle Island. The last of all beings to be created, first man was given the name Nanabozho. His instructions were to walk through the world in such a way that each step is a greeting to Mother Earth. As he continued exploring the land, Nanabozho was given a new responsibility to learn the names of all the beings. He watched them carefully to see how they lived and spoke with them to learn what gifts they carried in order to discern their true names. Right away, he began to feel more at home and was not lonely anymore when he could call the others by name and they called out to him when he passed. Bozo, still our greeting to one another today. Most people don't know the names of these relatives. In fact, they hardly even see them. Names are the way that we humans build relationships, not only with each other, but with the living world. She says, I'm trying to imagine what it would be like going through life, not knowing the names of the plants and animals around you. Given who I am and what I do, I can't know what that's like, but I think it would be a little scary and disorienting, like being lost in a foreign city where you can't read the street signs. Philosophers call this state of isolation and disconnection species loneliness, a deep, unnamed sadness stemming from estrangement from the rest of creation, from the loss of relationship. As our human dominance of the world has grown, we have become more isolated, more lonely when we can no longer call out to our neighbors. It's no wonder that naming was the first job the Creator gave Nanabozho. Here ends our reading.
The Greeks and Romans of the classical world were all too aware of the interconnectedness of all living things. They did not romanticize this web of life, however. It usually revealed itself in sunken ships and cities buried in lava and crops and livestock destroyed by pestilence and drought. Prayers were directed to gods of sea and sky and grain and forest, but it was a fraught union. The Greeks accounted for this condition in a myth of ages, a story of mostly decline in the human condition from its earliest days. In the first golden age, human beings lived in such perfect harmony with the planet and the gods that there were no plagues, no droughts, and people ate what the earth Gaia produced for them without labor during a perennial spring. They lived for a very long time without aging. Freud characterizes myths of this kind as fantasies of eternal childhood. What happened? The fall from the Golden Age was a tearing apart of humanity from an all-giving nature. I suppose Freud would say we all have to grow up sometime. The ancients proposed various reasons for this change. In Hesiod's Works and Days, our oldest Greek source of the myth, the Golden Agers simply died out. It seems they lived for a very long time, but did not reproduce. In the Old Testament, of course, it was knowledge of good and evil that cast Adam and Eve out of their blissful connectedness to nature and God in the Garden of Eden. In Greek myth, all of the ages after the Golden featured a vexed relationship between human beings and gods, nature, and each other. Gaia now only gave her gifts grudgingly after much human toil and imposed the barren season of winter, a change reflected in another myth about Demeter, the goddess of grain, who shuts down Earth's fertility in mourning over the rape of her daughter, Kore. The Earth gets spring and summer only when Kore is visiting her mom. These are stories about our UU seventh principle, the interconnectedness of all life, but with a focus on its dark and difficult side. This side is much more familiar to most of the world's population on a daily basis than the romantic view of elite poets on walks through the countryside. It is now much more familiar to the entire world with the arrival of COVID-19. Our human connection this morning via Zoom is imposed on us by the dark side of the interconnectedness of all life, which includes viruses that travel on human hosts, in turn traveling in cars and planes and boats. We are learning that while interconnection is one of the great glories of living on this earth, it can be a terrible glory. The web of all life demands our careful respect.
I invite you now into a time of prayer to be followed by a time of silence. As we do in our regular services, we will go directly from spoken prayer into silence and then into song. But right now, let us pause for a moment and enter that still place within ourselves, that center of our being, our quiet, inmost selves. Let's focus on our breathing for a moment. Feel our chest expand as we take air in and how it contracts as we breathe out. Spirit of life, known by many names, but by no name fully known. We offer our thanks this morning for our beautiful home, source of food, of shelter, of the air we breathe and the water we drink, our days and nights guided by the sun, the moon, and the stars, oriented by the pull of the tides and by the contours of familiar landscapes, rocks and hills, beaches and forests. Help us to remember that this home needs our loving care and needs us to learn to do without so that all can have what they need. Loving Spirit, we pray this morning, as we do every day, pray without ceasing for all those working to save lives threatened by the COVID-19 virus. May your love and ours give them the courage and resolve to keep fighting, to keep showing up, to do your work with their hands. We pray for all those in this community facing their fear, learning new ways to cope, to manage, all those worrying about loved ones, all those who are alone. May they know love and comfort. All this we ask in your name, which is love, as we enter into silence. Amen. Our next reading is the poem Gitanjali 69 by Rabindranath Tagore. The same stream that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shoots in joy through the numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and death, in ebb and flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this moment.
This reading is the poem By the Seashore by David Ferry. Now the tree that had been stone is stone again. Another age with notice none of what had gone and come again. And every tide register on the roaring page the change of bone to ice and stone to flower and sea.
Our creation stories tell us that once we knew that we were part of the whole, part of the web of all life. In the Native American myth, the first human knew all the names of the other creatures. In the Golden Age and in the Garden of Eden, the first humans lived so completely as part of the ecosystem that they wanted for nothing. As the folk song by Magpie puts it, we belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us. We belong to her. And somehow, across the years, we lost that knowledge that we belonged to something larger than ourselves. In the Greek and Hebrew creation stories, we became separated from that knowledge and physically separated as well, cast out from the garden, no longer part of the whole. This sense of separation grew until when the Puritans arrived here in the 1600s, they saw the wilderness all around them as dangerous, even evil, something to be tamed and to be exploited. The indigenous people who lived at home in this evil environment must also have been seen as other, as savage, as something to be tamed. And in the 400 years since the Puritans landed here, that belief about the natural world has been handed down, even as we grew better and more efficient at destroying and exploiting the creatures and natural resources around us. Forests were obliterated, and entire species became extinct, but we saw ourselves as apart from them. What difference would that make to us? Now, of course, not everyone felt that way. Henry David Thoreau, journaling about an awakening he had during a rainstorm, alone in his cabin near Walden Pond, wrote, "I was suddenly sensible of such sweet and beneficent society in nature, in the very pattering of the drops, and in every sight and sound around my house, an infinite and unaccountable friendliness all at once, like an atmosphere sustaining me. Every little pine needle expanded and swelled with sympathy and befriended me. I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again." Nature, of course, is not always beneficent, as Pat mentioned in her reflection. Nature can be hard and cruel. Right now, we are being forced into new ways of life by a naturally occurring virus, something that we cannot even see. And of course, humans ourselves are not always beneficent, kind, and ethical. But we are not separate. We do not exist above or outside all the rest of the creation. In fact, we need the rest of the creation much more than it needs us. As the earth begins to heal while we retreat indoors, as the air grows cleaner and more animals are visible and audible, we have to recognize that the planet and the rest of its inhabitants do not need us. No, it is we humans that need everything that has always been so freely provided to us. May we remember the lessons of this Earth Day. May we learn to stop seeing ourselves as different, as apart from the whole. And with that conviction and with humility, may we learn new ways of living that will help us to take our rightful place among the other species of this wondrous, amazing home that we share. And may we learn to be grateful. Blessed be. Amen.
When we are together in our beloved building on Church Street in Gloucester, we would normally, at this point in the service, take up a collection. Many of you have been asking how to make your pledge payments and other gifts at this time. We ask that you mail your contributions to the church at 10 Church Street, Gloucester, Mass., zip code 01930. Thank you very much. We are grateful for your financial support.
Our closing words this morning are from the United Nations Environmental Sabbath Service. We rejoice in all life. We live in all things live in us. We live by the sun. We move with the stars. We eat from the earth. We drink from the rain. We breathe from the air. We share with the creatures. We have strength through their gifts. We have the privilege of seeing and understanding. We have the responsibility of caring. We have the joy of celebrating. We are full of the grace of creation. We are graceful. We are grateful. We rejoice in all life. And may you go about your days in peace and in health and with love. Amen.
quench this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.